tell you what, they put it all over the county courthouse to the point where it's more than sightings of the way we think of urban legend and, Bigfoot and Sasquatch and sightings of lore and legend. It was more than lore and legend, or they wouldn't have carved them and put them off every corner of over the doorways. Just like any other business, over the doorway is the name of the corporation and the product they sell and who's in charge. And so there's probably a lot of overlap and a lot of parallel between the things the Spirit has revealed to me and the things that some Mormons already know to be true. In general, most of them don't even know about Kolob, Elohim, and the law of eternal progression. Their eyes glaze over. They're like, huh? In general, the most part, they just go about their business. But even those that don't know the doctrine and the dogma and the cosmology very well have grown up in a community where they've been cultivated and reared in such a way that they create a society worth living in. That is the fruits that you can judge them by, and leave all that doctrine and dogma and stuff you don't understand aside. Or, like the rest of these soft-minded people who want to take a hardline stance on things they don't understand, the Mormons are the Luciferians because they believed in the lie of Lucifer that said because Lucifer, Satan, just want to be just like God and challenge God for his position. And that's what the Mormons believe. They think we can become gods. As man is, God once was, and as God is, man may become. How evil, satanic. So all those good Christians that have created a world that ain't even fucking worth living in anymore are going to say that. And if you're worried about doctrine and dogma and cosmology rather than the actual fruits of their labor, or if you believe in stereotypes, I hear those Mormons are like the Amish, or they're like the Jehovah's Witness, a mind control indoctrination cult. You know what the joke is around here? Why do you always take more than one Mormon partying with you? Because if you only take one, they'll drink all your beer and smoke all your dope. Oh, see, that's just talking about what hypocrites they are. They only do it for show in front of everyone else. They've created a world that retains its value in a time when all else is about to lose its value. That Gucci bag ain't going to be worth shit. The burlap sack will be worth more than the Gucci bag. And the fruits of their labor and the society that they've produced and the community that they have cultivated of the consciousness that exists here is going to stand on its own as a self-evident truth, while everyone else can bicker about dogma and doctrine and cosmology. We're going to carry on with life and thrive. And in that community, I don't think they're going to be worried about whether or not I've been baptized. In fact, they know that the Spirit interacts with and communicates to people that haven't been baptized. So I just thought I'd throw that out there, that next time Mr. Bailey comes back by, because I couldn't even remember his name. Last time he came by, I was like, it's the Baileys, right? Because I remember his wife's name, Linda Bailey, because she's my mom's home teacher, and she came and did, check up on my mom quite often, deliver the newsletter of the month. So I'd heard Linda Bailey a bunch of times, but I have such a bad time with names. I even told him, dude, I feel so bad, but I can ask someone their name 5 times in a 3-minute conversation if I don't have something to associate it with and remember them by. And he's like, oh, it's Bob. I'm your minister, he says. I said, okay. As in to agree and accept to those terms. He's like, oh, but that's just a word. It's just, that's the same thing he said last time when he came by with the bell peppers. He applied some terminology and title to what it is he does, because I guess they're no longer visiting home teachers. They got to come up with something else. But this time he said, I'm your minister. I said, okay. He's like, but it's just a word or something like that. Okay. These are the fruits of his labor. If they've been watching and listening to the things I've been saying, they would probably not be too quick to associate. In fact, it'd be stay away from that guy and warn everybody not to listen to him. He's got that silver tongue and he's telling lies that sound so convincing that it's going to be persuasive to some people. So we need to tell everyone, don't listen to that guy. He's got the devil in him. And then I saw this. His name's Bob, he said. This says Rob Bailey. And I got it from the Deseret Industries. I'm going to ask him next time he comes by, is this your old lunchbox? One of the ways that God works in mysterious ways and coordinates and orchestrates these coincidences, some of them over the course of 25 years. Like the fact that I told you recently about this ambassadorship that I'm engaged in, and that phase 2 of the ambassadorship will be much easier than phase 1. Because during phase 1, I've been trying to introduce you to beings that you can't see, and that won't be the case in phase 2. And I also told you that 22 years ago, when I took Greg Braden's videos out to my dad and my sister, I wrote a letter to my sister to say, I might have given a copy of it to my dad. I remember for sure it went to my sister. She was working for the state of Colorado doing observation assessment, juvenile justice, adult parole, and probation. She was basically a security guard, a prison guard who worked at different departments, whether it's juvenile justice, intake, adult parole and probation, observation assessment, that kind of thing. She was wearing the badge and the uniform of the state. My dad, he's worked for the Gov his whole life. After he got out of the military, it was Ford Aerospace, Loral Aerospace, and then Lockheed Martin Aerospace, all of which were under government contract. He hasn't worked for anyone besides the government a day in his life, other than what he might have done it before he checked into the military. And in that letter that I wrote my sister when I delivered the videos of Greg Braden saying Awakening to Zero Point and Beyond Zero Point, the collective initiation, which we are now in, that you don't want to be on the side of the established institution as this shift goes down, and after which I will be more likely to hold a position that you currently see as a position of authority carried out by politicians and law enforcement. Here we are, 22 years later. God works in mysterious ways. Many of those things that I said 20 years ago come back to surprise me. These coincidences and synchronicities happen in such a way that after you've been paying attention long enough, you recognize sometimes they coincide with the thought that you're having or the feeling you're having or what you just said. And I started to tune into these and recognize them when I was 19 years old. Maybe 20. Maybe 21 even. It was no later than 21. It was probably when I was 20. And as you start to pay attention to and tune into and be receptive to these synchronicities, you recognize it's not a random coincidence. It is an orchestrated and coordinated coincidence by an intelligence, a force, that which Greg Braden refers to as the spirit, a universal intelligence that pervades all of our world and all of the cosmos that the ancients called spirit. It is this force that coordinates and orchestrates and seems to have the ability to bend space and time and knows exactly what you're thinking in every moment and before it even becomes a thought, when it's still a feeling. This force that orchestrates and coordinates these synchronicities, these coincidences that aren't random coincidences, they're orchestrated coincidences. And once you get to seeing this stuff, you see it more and more all over. To the point where this is the most recent version of one of those coincidences. I was just asking him his name. I'm going to say, is your name Robert? Is this your old lunchbox, Bob? And by the way, I got something to give back to you next time you come, because I do appreciate these. But more importantly, I have something to offer this community rather than asking what this community can do for me. I have some services. I have a facility that I have failed to mention, and I will not mention on these videos, nor will I take this camera to my facility, lest the geotag locators drop a bead on it. But I have a facility that's in my possession. And when you've heard that saying, possession is 9/10 of the law, which makes no sense in our society. So what, if I go steal 10 things and 9 out of 10 of them are mine, I get to keep 9 out of 10 of them? That saying comes from a time when law and order broke down. People are talking about, oh, I got the title to that, but I got a lien on the title, but you still owe on that, and we got a debt over here. All right, we're going to settle all of this. Possession is 9/10 of the law. If you're in possession of it, it's yours. In very rare exception will we even litigate any of this property rights. Only from a time such as that could a phrase like possession is 9/10 of the law have come about into our lexicon and become a colloquialism that we've all heard but don't know what the hell it means or where it comes from. But some people recite it as if it makes them sound smart like a lawyer. Oh yeah, did you know it? Possession 9/10 of the law? Yeah. Where did that saying come from? I have a facility that's in my possession that I'd like to share, along with some other services rendered and goods and services. But until then, I'll just keep doing what I do. And I'm pretty sure that I've liked Utah more and more everywhere I go as a truck driver over the last 10 years. The more places I go, the more I like Utah. Long before the current situation that we find ourselves in, where it looks like your local community is going to be, supply chains are going to shorten. By the way, ships have not arrived at the port in a while. A month or two ago, you started hearing Marfugel talk about how ships are coming in half full. Last week or two, you hear him talking about how ships aren't even arriving at the ports in places like Portland and Seattle. Marfugel lives in Seattle. A lot of people around there work at these docks. So he would know. But that kind of word ain't going to spread like wildfire on the internet, especially when they're still paying those guys to come into work every day, even though there's no ships to unload. You can work on the dock, you can sweep this and wash that and repaint this, do some maintenance on this and that. Even though there's no ships to unload, we're still going to pay you to come in every day and pretty much do nothing. What do you care? You're still getting paid your 8 hours a day. What do you care if there ain't no ships to unload? Okay, I guess. Yeah, you're right. Because if they stopped bringing those guys in and paying them to do nothing, word would spread like wildfire. There's no more goods coming in. You see, my dad today mentioned that on Fox News they had a bunch of landlords, guys that own 2 or 3 different houses and rent them out, and that's how they live, off of the rent from these rental properties. But since the government put a stay on evictions, the landlord can't evict the renter, and now the bank, who holds the deed on that land, is saying that we're going to foreclose on your properties because you can't pay us. Well, he's like, I'm behind $90,000 on my 3 different properties because the government hasn't allowed me to kick those guys out and get someone in there that will pay rent. And I explained to my dad, well, then the next logical, obvious step on up the chain, since you told the landlord you can't evict the renter, now you need to tell the bank you can't foreclose on the landlord who owns the house or who has the deed or has a loan on the property, yet the bank still owns the house. Follow it up the chain one link, and that's the same line of logic and reasoning. You know what's up the chain one link from there? China saying, okay, round eye, you owe us $1 billion trillion and we're not going to send any more ships. Because the banks are like, well, if we can't foreclose on these guys and take the property and offer it to someone else and sell it to someone else, we can't cover the interest on our debt to China. And that's when China says, okay, no more ships for you. We're not sending you any more goods on loan, on IOU. That already happened. The goods that are out there in the supply chain right now are the last that there is. After that, the butcher, the baker, and the candlestick maker in your local community is who you're going to have to develop a relationship with. Thinking of things that will actually have value in such a time where we have to make do with whatever we've got, like rubber bands, tape, plastic sheeting, garbage bags, cleaning supplies, regular utility stuff that's useful, durable goods that does not perish. Yeah, you need some food, but you need a lot of other things too. And that's when it becomes more advantageous to invest with the mindset of what can I contribute to the community, not need to have everything that I need. I need to have some of what I need for a little while, but then larger stockpiles of things that the community can use. At a warehouse, at a general store, turning my own apartment into a general store so that anyone who wants to trade one of my things, they got to have something else in trade. The things I have, I could trade to the butcher, the baker, and the candlestick maker. But I got a pretty good feeling the Mormons already got Mormon coin. Any money is only based on trust and confidence in the issuer of that currency, not even the issuer of that currency. It's whether or not the butcher, the baker, and the candlestick maker are going to accept this Mormon coin that you're offering me if I go to trade it to them. Because you want me to give you some of my stuff, or a day's labor, a day of my labor, and you want to give me one of these little wooden nickels that says Deseret on it? What the hell am I supposed to do with this? Well, you can take that down to the butcher and the baker and the candlestick maker, and they will all accept that as currency. They will? Mm-hmm. They have confidence and trust and belief? Well, yeah, because the butcher knows that the baker and the candlestick maker are both accepting it, and the baker knows that the butcher and the candlestick maker are both accepting that as coin currency, and the candle maker knows that the butcher and the baker are both accepting it. And economy will not even slow down and miss a beat around here because there is trust and confidence in the currency, and that currency is the issuer of that currency is the community you're surrounded by, and the belief and the confidence and trust that you can place in them that they will make good on their debts. See what I'm saying? They already got the coin in place, ready for distribution. And even if that's not true, barter will happen naturally around here because people still know their neighbors, still trust their neighbors enough to organize. See, Salty Cracker the other day, he's like, plant fruit trees. Just get together with your neighbors. Say, okay, you plant a pear tree and you plant an orange tree and I'll plant a plum tree. And one tree puts off more fruits than you could possibly consume with one family. So you just coordinate it with your neighbors to make sure you vary and stagger the fruits that you have lining the street. You don't live in a community where you could do such a thing. In general, that's true. For everyone watching this, I'm sorry, but you don't. I do live in a community where such relationships will automatically just thrive. We won't miss a beat. I'm glad that there's those stereotypes that keeps the people away who don't fit in here, who are not compatible with this petri dish because their consciousness would not integrate their underlying priorities, principles, and standards are not in alignment with truth. And therefore, that relationship would not be possible. The basis of a relationship is the common underlying beliefs, values. Around here, even the lukewarm, who don't really study the doctrine, I mean, hell, my mom, my dad, they're both baptized. I'm going to fit in a lot better with this community than them. Just because they're baptized don't mean shit. Your underlying principles, priorities, and standards of behavior, that is the fruits of your labor that you will be judged upon. Not adherence to or recital of doctrine and dogma that you don't even understand but think it's going to get you somewhere good. Because you're a soft-minded person who took a really, really, really hardline stance on something you don't understand, and you call that faith. Yeah, I don't know what it means, but God, I'm sure it's true. I'm going to live and die by it. Ain't no way you can believe in something you don't understand. If you believe in things you don't understand, it's superstitious. Superstition ain't the way. That song says you suffer when you engage in superstition. Most people know the chorus of it. Really superstitious, writing on the wall. I listened to that song and heard that part for the first time ever. That it said, superstition ain't the way. And you know what happens when you believe in things that you don't understand? You suffer. A lot of these soft-minded people are going to take a hardline stance on things they don't understand and use differences of dogma and doctrine and cosmology to say, see, they're the devil. When if you look at the fruits of their labor, they're the most Christian Christians that you could ever spot out there. They actually live in accordance with their proclaimed beliefs. You can spot them in a crowd by their demeanor, by their behavior, often by their attire. You say, oh yeah, that guy's Mormon. Not always. You can't spot every Mormon no matter where you go. But in some cases, you can spot the Mormon based on their behavior, their language, their demeanor, their countenance, their attire. The fruits of their labor, how they actually live. And I'm glad there's a lot of people that are going to say, oh, no, they're like the Amish. They're like the Jehovah's Witness. They're the fucking devil. Jamie Lee of A Plain Truth, he put out a video the other day. I'm going to link it in the description. Talks about the Mormon battalion that got to California for the gold rush 2 years before the gold rush even started. And yeah, there were some wars. The Savage Wars, the Black Hawk Wars. Jamie Lee says, why'd they have a battalion, huh? Why'd they have a battalion? As if that means they're evil. Well, maybe for the same reason any battalion in all of history has ever been established. Whatever that reason is for, because of the human condition, it is necessary. And the secrecy is also necessary. And I've said this many times, that I am fully well aware now of the need for secrecy. And that's one of the things that Mormons get chastised for, is that their temple rituals are secret. And they say, oh no, they're not secret, they're just too sacred. Too sacred. I understand now, the average people out there are biobot transceivers programmed to eradicate the truth anywhere they find it. And the Mormons were on the receiving end of a witch hunt. So they know damn well what these people are capable of. There would be reason, if you have truth and they have indoctrination, you might want to keep your truth to yourself. Like it says in the song, I keep my visions to myself. Fleetwood Mac. And you might want to keep your truths to yourself if you live in a society that is programmed to eradicate truth, and anyone that comes in contact with it and out them as their own way to stay within the hassle-free zone. I spotted one over here, a witch! Because if you don't, and you hear someone saying that something that's outside the hassle-free zone, the beaten path of the drones and clones of acceptable thought within conventional wisdom, and you hear someone saying something outside, it is your job, you are obligated to hassle them back into the hassle-free zone. And if they won't, you need to out them and let everyone know. This guy went outside the hassle-free zone and brought some information back from out there in the wilderness, and he's trying to spread his commie propaganda. Like on the Seinfeld episode where Kramer, some kid was trying to out him. This guy's a commie, spreading his commie propaganda. If you lived in such a world and you had such a truth, you might jealously guard it from the knuckle-dragging troglodytes who made those torture devices in the Dark Ages. Oh, but that's the Dark Ages. That's a different Christianity than what exists now. That's not us. That was. Why are you bringing up old shit, man? Why are you bringing up old shit? I haven't seen any torture devices that the Mormons have used to propagate their religion. Oh, well, that was a long time ago. How do you know? How long ago was that? It doesn't matter how long ago that was. That's how Christianity as we know it today came to be? I remember as a kid, me and my sister and my two cousins, Monica and Brenda, we were asking like Uncle Bill and Grandma, we were like, does God have a wife? I said, yeah. What's her name? We don't get to know because people would take her name in vain the same way they take God's name in vain. But God has a wife? Yeah, God has a wife. I was like 7. It was before 9 years old because by 9 years old, I moved to California and stayed there. But it was before that time when I remember hearing my sister and my cousins asking my grandma and my uncle about God's wife. And they say, yeah, God's got a wife. What's her name? We don't get to know. Her name's too sacred. Because people would take her name in vain if they knew her name. The good Christians will say, oh, that's Lilith. Oh, that's the whore of Babylon. The female has been demonized as the source of original sin, Adam and Eve, the whore of Babylon. And if you can name a part in the Bible where the female isn't denigrated or completely eliminated from the equation, like the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, the Holy Spirit, well, where's the woman? Oh, no, it's just the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Where's the woman? Oh, no, there's no woman. You sure it's not man, woman, child, as we see everywhere else in nature? Oh, no, this is an aberration to as above, so below. This is as it is here. It's nothing like that above. There is no man, woman, and child. No. It's the Father, Son, and the Holy Squirt. On that note, I'm going to show you something here. Another one of these synchronicities and coincidences. On my bag, on my Everlast speed bag that I bought, it's still in the box. Their logo, their motto says, I might have to turn this upside down so you can read it. Greatness is with him. Are you seeing that? Greatness is with him. Greatness is with him. Greatness is with him. And of course, you look it up online and their motto says greatness is within. WITHIN. But in this case, all the tape, it repeats it over and over. Greatness is with him. Oh, I'm sure it was just a typo. I'm sure it means nothing. Right, just like this E that's tilted at an angle, like the Enron E and like the other corporations who use that tilted E at an angle. I'm sure that means nothing, and this is just a typo. But if you had truth, you might encode it with symbolism and metaphor and analogies in order to keep it from the dumbed down masses and give it other meanings like the parable of the beam and the mote. Oh yeah, that's just talking about, it just means like, judge not lest ye be judged. Like the beam in your eye is exactly the opposite shape as the mote in their eye, so they can see what's around the periphery, but not what's right down the middle. And you can see what's down the middle, but not what's around the periphery. So don't judge lest you be judged. And they can see what you can't, and you can see what they can't. Yeah, that's what the parable of the beam and the mote means. You might keep some of these things to yourself, but in all the times that I've reinterpreted that parable, and it might be the most popular parable ever, not a single one of these dogmatic Christians has come at me and said, oh no, here Jeff, you got it all wrong. Here, let me explain to you what it means is this and what it means is that. When I've explained to you that it's referring to pupil shape and imploring you not to commit genocide based on pupil shape, not a single one of these soft-minded people who love to take a hardline stance on things they don't understand has come at me and For those with eyes to see, here is wisdom. Not once. And there's a lot of those. And it doesn't say, remove the mote from your eye, and then you'll be able to remove the beam from your space brother's eye. It says remove the beam from your eye. So either that book was written to someone else who has a beam in their eye, because we don't, or you do and you just don't know it. It's time to reconsider everything you think you know. The rug's about to get jerked right out from under you. Before I forget, emergency alert broadcast system is being tested on the 10th of this month. Radio, television, and the phones. On the same day, a nationwide 5G test is being done. Even though they've already turned up the 5G in different places and locations, for some reason on that same exact day, they're testing the 5G system. Now this is something I heard from Montegraph, on the Monograph channel. I rarely watch his stuff because he just go, anyway. He said that he heard this thing about the 5G towers being tested on the 10th. Maybe it's on the 11th for a half hour from 12 Eastern till 12:30 a.m. Eastern on the 11th, which means it's the night of the 10th, right at midnight for a half hour into 1 half hour into the morning on the 11th. Eastern time, adjust that according to your time zone, is when they're testing the 5G network. And he said that he heard this third hand from someone else, who heard it from someone else, that works at one of these big telecom companies that told him, we're running this test on the 11th and be home with your family on that day. And he said that's the part that weirds me out. Why would he say that? Why would he say be home with your family on that day? We know from all of these drills that have gone live, like the London bus bombing or the train bombing or the 9/11 or the Sandy Hook or all of these drills and training exercises that go live, where the actual thing that they're training for actually happens on the exact day that they were training for it, and it's the exact scenario that they were training for, and what do you know? So much so that it becomes obvious that is a cover story that they use in order to keep the public from panicking, and it would interfere with their own investigation if they said, there's going to be some guys on some planes pulling some shit on or about this day, and so they don't tell you that. They run drills and training exercises. They run tests of the emergency broadcast. Oh yeah, we're just going to test it. When they got enough chatter that they know something's going down, but they don't know exactly what, when, or how, or if they'll be able to stop it, they run drills. That way the people that are actually in on the drill think it's just a test. And they don't go tell their family shit like, be home with your family on this day because this ain't a test. That is what that kind of a statement would imply. It would indicate this is not a test. But it's just a statement that someone said to someone that spoke to Monograph. But if he did know, and if he did have hard evidence, he wouldn't tell you. He'd tell you it was someone said something to someone, so he really has no more than just third-hand hearsay. But they are indeed running this emergency alert broadcast system test on the 10th. So you might want to be home with your family on that day. Or be wherever you want to be on that day. Might not be home with your family. Might be somewhere else. Just enjoy. Because I see people going about their business acting like this ain't happening. With the air quality outside. My stepdad's all pissed off about some money that he had to pay. Oh, by the way, that book with the Alfa Romeo logo on it at the auto repair place, that wasn't there a week or two ago when I went in the first time. I looked at those magazines. If that book was there, I would have noticed it. No chance I would not have noticed that. Zero chance I would have glanced by and just not noticed it. It wasn't there. That book, even though it's got a lot of dust on it, showed up within the last week or two. It's less than 2 weeks. It was like a week and 3 days. Since we took that car down there to get repaired, and while he was checking it in and telling him what needs done and whatnot, I looked at those magazines. I'm observant, and I remember looking at those magazines, seeing if there was anything worth looking at. That book wasn't there. Sure, you can say it's coincidence. And it is. And it coincides with the orchestrating, coordinating force that is spirit. And this world isn't what we thought it was. But right now, people are having their world image, their worldview burnt down. That's what Greg Braden said we would go through, a paradigm shift. Paradigm is a collective self-image and worldview. You have your own individual self-image and worldview, and that person has their own individual self-image and worldview, and that person has theirs, and collectively, we all have a paradigm. Those things about our self-images and worldviews that we hold in common, like that we're on a spinning ball in a solid world where timelines are fixed, that's all part of our paradigm. Yeah, you can't time travel. Time is fixed. It goes in one linear motion, and we live on a spinning ball in the middle of space, and that's our collective paradigm. The things about all of our self-images and worldviews that overlap, that's the paradigm of the collective. Our relationships are being broken down right now because they're based on common beliefs, common understandings, common values and principles and priorities. And I see a lot of people that not sure what's their priority and their principle, so they just keep focusing on shit that don't matter. As if that air isn't filled with so much smoke that at this rate, you probably don't have much longer. So, prepare to meet your maker, or try and make another few $100 over the next week. Whichever is a greater priority to you, whichever is more in alignment with your principles, let that reflect in your standards of behavior. For most people, they just keep going to work as if none of this is happening.